Alright, welcome back to our last rebuild video for the Shimano rod. I'm going to be wrapping guides and getting this thing onto epoxy and finished up here. So in this little clip we're wrapping the guide and I'm going to be installing a double trim band here on the top of the hook keeper. Here you see me inserting the trim band thread, locking it down, and then I'm going to bring that trim band thread after I clear off the tag end there of the main thread. I'm going to bring that trim band back under the main thread and then wrap it around the blank one time. And this allows you to get a nice clean single thread trim band. You see going around that and then back onto the other side, in this case the bottom or to the left of the wrapping thread, and then locking it down. And I'll do, in this case I'll do 2 turns, could just do 1 or more, and then I'm going to bring it back over again, wrap it around the blank for a second band, and then back under to lock it, and that's it. All there is to it for a simple trim band. Going back with exactly what was on this rod before, looking from the style and trim bands and everything else. So just making it back to original. Clean that up, and then we'll finish up with this wrap on the hook keeper, and then we'll move on and we're going to do the same thing on the stripper guide. Again, I'm going to do a dual band. This is again what was on the rod originally. We're using D thread once again because that's what was on the rod originally. Usually I'll use A, but keeping this as authentic to what was on there to start with. Double trim band there, up the guide foot, keeping things nicely packed. And then I'm just using the little silicone or rubber, I should say, guide tubing, little pieces of that to hold these guide feet on. I like to use 2 pieces just to help on these longer guide feet and also help keep things steady as I start going up the foot. I'm also now going to be doing a locking wrap. As I get to the end of my wrap here, I'm going to take the thread and wrap around the guide foot itself, as you see, and then back around the blank, and I'll usually do this 2 times. So around the guide foot at the base, keeping it nice and tight, and then around the blank, and it really helps prevent the guide from pulling out if it gets snagged on a rod locker or something on the boat. Just a little touch to really add a little something to your custom build and the robustness of the rod. So we'll clean up those tag ends here at this point, and we'll move on to the next guide. Alright, on this next guide we're just going to do a single trim band, again matching what was on the rod originally. We'll wrap that trim band in and just finish wrapping up the guide. We'll continue this process on up the rest of the rod, remainder of the guides, and we'll move on to epoxy. Alright, it's time to move on to epoxy. Mixing up Gen 4 regular build here, 3 milliliters of each. Oftentimes I'll do less. I'm just making up this much because I have some other things to do while I'm at it. Then we'll move on. We're just going to apply a light coat of epoxy onto this first coat wrap. Just enough to saturate the threads, and I'll make sure to fill the tunnels on either side, and then we'll move on and do the next one. We're not spending a lot of time here, just enough epoxy to really again saturate those wraps, and we'll come back and make things nice and pretty on a second coat, and if needed, a third coat. So we'll do this on the stripper guide, of course, now onto the second guide, and we'll just continue to do it down the rest of the guides on the rod. It doesn't take so long. Now we're going to move on and apply the tip top to the rod. I'm cutting the hot glue, tip top glue, into some small strips to fit into the tube, and then using my butane torch to melt that glue into the tube nice and soft. And then I like to take a little bit and actually melt it down and apply it directly to the tip of the rod. Hit it again with the torch to make sure everything's good and soft on the tip top, and stick it on, clean it up. Squeeze out the top of the tip top and on the bottom side, but just make sure everything's where we need it, and we're ready to go on to our second coat of epoxy. Now we're applying the epoxy here. This is really our pretty coat, if you will. Getting a nice good layer on it, not too thick, but enough to level everything out nice and pretty. Again, making sure our tunnels are touched up, and moving it on from there. And with that, our Shimano rebuild is complete.